What if everything you believe about your life is not really your choice, but something carefully shaped for you since the day you were born? What if the world around you looks safe on the outside, but deep inside, it is built on rules you are not allowed to question? And the moment you start asking the wrong questions, everything begins to fall apart? In a world like the Testaments, nothing is as simple as it seems. Life is not just about living freely. It is about living inside limits you cannot always see. People wake up, follow rules, and repeat the same routines every single day, thinking this is normal, thinking this is the only way to survive. But beneath this quiet surface, something much darker is always moving. This is a place where control is not always loud. It is quiet. It is calm. And that is what makes it more powerful. When people are told what is right from wrong again and again, they slowly stop asking why. They stop wondering if there is another truth hiding behind the words they hear. Over time, even questions begin to feel dangerous. In this world, faith and fear walk side by side. People are taught to trust the system completely, even when parts of it do not make sense. They are told that order is safety, and safety is everything. But what happens when safety starts to feel like a cage? What happens when peace comes at the cost of truth? There are places where people live under constant watch, where every action feels measured and every word feels carefully chosen. Even silence can feel like a form of survival, because saying too much can bring consequences that no one wants to face. And so, most people learn to stay quiet, even when something inside them starts to question everything. But not everyone can stay silent forever. Some minds begin to notice the cracks, small moments that do not fit, a story that changes slightly when told again, a rule that feels more like a warning than a law. These small details start building up until they form one big question that cannot be ignored anymore. What is really going on behind all of this? And this is where the real tension begins. Because in a system built on control, even curiosity becomes dangerous. The moment someone starts looking deeper, they are no longer just a part of the world they live in. They become a problem that needs to be handled. But truth has a strange nature. It does not stay hidden forever. It waits. It builds. And sometimes it finds its way into the hands of the very people who were never meant to see it. In the Testaments, the surface looks calm, almost peaceful. But underneath, there is always pressure building. Pressure from secrets, pressure from fear, pressure from people who are beginning to realize that the life they are living might not be the only version of life that exists. And once that thought enters the mind, it never really leaves. Because the hardest part is not discovering the truth. The hardest part is accepting that everything before it might have been a lie. Life in this world does not begin with freedom. It begins with structure. Everything has a place. Every person has a role. And from the moment someone opens their eyes each day, the system is already working around them, shaping what they see, what they hear, and even what they are allowed to think. Nothing feels random here. Even the smallest detail feels planned, like the world itself is carefully arranged to stay in balance. People move through their days with a quiet kind of acceptance. Not because they are happy, but because they have learned that questioning too much brings trouble. So they follow the rhythm of life without resistance. They wake up when they are told, they speak when it is safe, and they stop themselves before asking anything that might sound dangerous. Over time, this becomes normal. Not because it is right, but because it is repeated so often that it starts to feel like truth. The environment around them supports this silence. Streets feel orderly, conversations stay controlled, and even emotions are kept in check. There is always a sense that someone is watching, even when no one is visible. This feeling changes how people behave. They begin to adjust themselves without being told. They learn what to hide, what to avoid, and what must never be spoken aloud. But what makes this world even more powerful is that it does not rely on force alone. It relies on belief. People are not just controlled by fear. They are also guided by what they are told is right. From early on, they are taught that the system exists for protection, that without it, everything would fall into chaos. This belief becomes a shield. It stops many from looking deeper, because questioning protection feels like questioning survival itself. Still, beneath this surface of order, there is tension that never fully disappears. It exists in small moments. A pause before answering a question. A glance that lasts a little too long. A silence that feels heavier than words. These moments are small, but they carry weight. They suggest that not everyone is fully convinced. Not everyone feels as safe as they are expected to appear. The most striking part is how normal everything looks from the outside. If someone were to observe this world without knowing its history, they might think it is peaceful, organized, even stable. But that stability comes at a cost that is not always visible. It is built on limits that are rarely discussed. Limits on speech, limits on thought, limits on choice. And when limits become invisible, they become easier to accept. In this kind of world, even personal identity begins to blur. People stop asking who they are and start focusing only on what they are allowed to be. Dreams become smaller, desires become quieter, and slowly, the idea of wanting something different starts to feel unrealistic. Not because it is impossible, but because it has never been encouraged. Yet, even in this controlled environment, human nature does not fully disappear. There are always small signs of resistance, even if they are unspoken. A look that questions longer than it should. A thought that refuses to settle. A feeling that something about this life does not fully add up. These signs are easy to ignore at first, but they never fully go away. The system depends on this balance. It needs people to function within limits, but it also knows that completely removing curiosity is impossible. So instead, it manages it. It redirects it. It keeps it contained just enough so it does not become dangerous. And for a long time, this balance holds. But balance is not the same as stability. Because underneath all of this quiet order, there is always the possibility that someone, somewhere, will start to look a little closer than they are supposed to. Behind the surface of strict order, there are layers of truth that most people never get to see. Life in this world is not built on a single clear reality. It is built on versions of reality, carefully arranged so that only certain people are allowed to understand the full picture. For everyone else, truth arrives in pieces, shaped in a way that keeps the system stable. Some truths are shared openly, but they are only the ones that support the structure. They are repeated so often that they begin to feel natural. People grow up hearing the same explanations, the same rules, the same reasons why things must stay the way they are. Over time, these repeated ideas stop feeling like teachings and start feeling like facts that cannot be questioned. But there are other truths that never reach the surface. These are the ones that exist behind closed doors, in conversations that stop when someone enters the room, in documents that are never fully explained, in decisions that affect many lives but are made by very few people. These hidden layers are not unknown because they are impossible to find, but because they are carefully protected from being seen. Within this controlled world, knowledge itself becomes a form of power. The more someone knows, the more dangerous they are considered. Not because knowledge is harmful, but because it changes how a person thinks. And thinking differently is the first step toward breaking the pattern that holds everything together. There are individuals who begin to sense these hidden layers. At first, it is not clear. It starts as small confusion. A detail that does not match another detail. A rule that changes without explanation. A story that sounds slightly different depending on who tells it. These inconsistencies are easy to ignore alone, but they become harder to dismiss when they start connecting. And once connection begins, doubt follows. Doubt is the most powerful force in a controlled system because it spreads quietly. It does not announce itself. It grows slowly inside the mind, building questions that do not have easy answers. Why is this allowed? Why is that forbidden? Who decided this, and why can't it be changed? These questions are not loud, but they are persistent. To protect itself, the system does not always remove doubt directly. Instead, it replaces it with reassurance. It offers explanations that sound complete, but feel slightly too simple. It encourages people to trust without digging deeper. And for many, this is enough. Because accepting an easy answer is often less painful than facing a complicated truth. But for those who cannot ignore the gaps, something changes. They begin to look beyond what is shown to them. They notice how certain events are remembered differently depending on who is speaking. They notice how some topics are avoided completely, as if silence itself is part of the rule. These observations slowly build a different understanding of the world they live in. The most dangerous part is not discovering that something is hidden. It is realizing how carefully it has been hidden. Because that means the system is not just maintaining order, it is shaping perception. It is deciding what becomes reality for most people and what remains out of reach. In this environment, even curiosity becomes a risk. Asking too many questions can draw attention. Paying too much attention can lead to consequences that are never clearly explained, only quietly understood. So people learn to balance their thoughts, to stop themselves before reaching certain conclusions, to stay within the limits of what is considered safe understanding. Still, hidden truths have a way of resurfacing. They do not disappear just because they are buried. They move through whispers, through inconsistencies, through memories that do not fully match what is officially said. And slowly, they begin to form patterns that are impossible to ignore forever. In the end, the system is not only protecting secrets, it is protecting the illusion that nothing needs to be questioned at all,